Hey, what's it like to shoot your bow and represent some top quality archery manufacturers? Hi, my name is Roy Canterbury. I'm your host today on Archery Talk 101, and we have Kasey on the line, and we're going to talk to her about her journey and starting out in archery and now going to shooting with some of the top shooters and representing some top companies. Welcome to the show, Kasey.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been an amazing journey so far. My family and I travel all over the country. We've had a lot of fun with it, and hopefully it's just the beginning. So yeah, it's been great.
So what got you started in archery?
I actually just got started about 4 or 5 years ago. My husband has been an avid hunter for years, since he was in high school, and has always went on hunting trips and been an avid hunter for a long time. And it was kind of just his thing. He, took our boys and was an avid hunter for a long time. And when we had our youngest, who's now 12, he had gotten her into a local archery group at a local church with my niece and nephew when they were, I think, 4 or 5 years old is when they first started with that, just to kind of get involved with it. He'd wanted to get our older boys involved, and they were interested in going out hunting with him, but weren't really into the archery aspect of it near as much as our youngest daughter was when her cousins got involved in things. And so Connect Sports offered a little, I think it was like a 6-week little archery challenge type thing, where you could learn a few skills and learn how to shoot a little bare bow, and had some challenges every weekend where you could try and earn little prizes, and got her started in that. And she just kind of naturally took to it. So she had a lot of fun every week and started doing that. And then when she started having fun with it, he's like, she kind of likes this. Maybe she'll get into it. And so he took her into the local archery shop and got her a bow. And so within a couple of weeks, there was a local tournament that the archery shop had on their little pegboard in the back. And so he said, I think I want to sign her up for that. I think she's doing really good and she's really liking that. And the other little thing at Connect Sports was coming to an end. And he said, I think I'm going to sign her up for that. And I said, all right, well, I'll be there to take pictures. It's your thing. Mom will go and take pictures. And so I'll never forget, sitting in the back, and a good friend of ours now was standing next to her, 6 foot tall, shooting his bow. And here she is, this little kid just pulling back on this, little pink bow and shooting her first tournament. And she had no idea what she was doing. We had no idea what we were doing, but she was having a blast. And he just kind of talked her through the whole thing. She was so nervous, and she just had a wonderful time. And one of the owners of the shop came up to us afterwards, and he's like, so, how long's she been doing this, and who's been coaching her, and what's going on? And, we're like, 6 weeks. And so he's like, yeah, so we need to have a chat about that, because she's got some pretty natural talent there. And, I think she could do a lot if you got, her a little bit of training and things like that. So that's really where it started, was that tournament, standing next to that 6 foot tall guy and her little church group. And so it wasn't long before we found out that this was going to be a whole lot more than what we bargained for. So she got into it pretty intense right then. And I believe the conversation was, 4-H is starting up, and maybe get her involved in a 4-H club and get some lessons. And I'd been in 4-H my whole life and was a leader and, the queen, and, had done all of that stuff. And so I said, well, I think I have some connections, and, I'll get a hold of some old leaders and find out who's in the group around. And so I got a hold of some people locally, and realized pretty quickly that in our area, there were some, former pros that were archery leaders. So that gave us some connections right away. And one thing led to another. And so, she was able to get started in 4-H and all of that. But the fun part of it is that while my husband really enjoyed getting her started, the competitive side of him didn't really know how to handle the pressure. And so he knew that she had a lot of natural talent, and he'd get so nervous, when she'd go out there and start to compete. And I'm like, just do your best, honey. You're going to do fine. And I'd try and keep her calm, and he'd be all, remember this and remember that. And we got to make sure you're all ready. And he'd get her so nerved up by the time she'd get up there to do it. She was sweating bullets. And I'm like, oh, buddy, you've never done anything competitive like this, have you? And so it wasn't very long before she was like, if you don't start getting involved in this, I'm done. And here's a 6-year-old girl going, if dad's the one doing this, I'm out. Like, I'm not doing this. I go, oh, this is not my gig, honey. I know nothing. I know nothing about this. This is you and dad's thing. I know nothing. She goes, well, if you don't start getting involved, I'm not doing it. And so
that's some pressure.
That was a lot of pressure, because I'm like, I know absolutely nothing. I've just been taking pictures and letting you and dad do this. And so I think we went to dinner, and at dinner, we called up dad right then. And I said, hey, do you still have Caitlin's old bow? That was our older daughter at the time. And he said, yeah. And I go, well, do you think that's something maybe I could shoot? I mean, I knew nothing, I didn't even know if my teenage daughter's bow could fit. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't even believe I thought that was even possible. And he's like, yeah, I guess now I know why I smacked my arm and, made all kinds of a mess. But he dug it out, and he's like, well, I guess we'll see. And I went to 4-H practice that night, and the coach kind of helped me figure out how to pull the stupid thing back and, shoot a couple arrows. I thought it was just going to suffice her, like, oh, see, mom did it. Here we go. And nope. She was like, well, you need to get a bow, because that's not going to work. And so, so that's kind of how I got started in it. But, I was weak. I couldn't pull anything back. I didn't know what I was doing. All I knew was that, I'd watched my husband have the best of the best equipment, for years. So I knew what quality equipment felt like.
Yeah.
I knew what stuff cost, even though he tried to hide it from me for years. And,
never works, does it?
Yeah. I knew how to handle, the competitive pressures of competing at a high level, even though, I knew nothing about archery. I knew how to compete at high levels for other things. And so it didn't take me long to apply that to archery. So I kind of just jumped into it with that. So it's been a crazy journey in that regard. I just used, some of the lessons that I've had in other things to apply it to this, and been lucky enough to find a bow shop with a talented bow tech, like right away, that, just set me up with an amazing bow right away that just, took me where I needed to go. And I'm inquisitive. So, I want to know the why. I don't want somebody to just be like, do this. I want to know, well, why? What if I do this? Then what's going to happen if I do that? So I think that kind of blessed me to get started. So, yeah. And within a couple of months, or well, I wouldn't even say months, couple of weeks, my husband was like, yeah, you're at the limit from what I can help you. So I think you need to go to the demo center maybe and get some lessons, and so I wandered over there with my bow and set up, and talked with Coach Glenn, and he was pretty speechless there pretty quickly. And, he goes, this is either going to be really fun or really annoying. I haven't figured that out yet. And it took him a couple of days and a couple of lessons for him to go, well, I think it might be fun. We'll see how far this goes. And, 5 years later, we're having fun. So it's been cool. It's been a journey. I'm very much a type A personality. And so archery completes that for me. You're never, ever, ever at the top of the game. There's always something new. There's always something that's broken that you got to work on, or something that you have to improve. So,
well, nobody's going to put the arrow in the center of the X every time at whatever distance they want to shoot at. So you always have improvement.
There's always something. And so, yeah, that's kind of how I got started. I fell into it, and so many things that, I have found that I really enjoy about other things in my life all kind of come together in archery, and it's been a wild ride. The season has been the most intense so far. But it's been really cool at the same time.
Yeah, it's amazing, when you get into archery, all the people in there, and how helpful majority of them are. There's a few that aren't, but you almost have to try and hunt for somebody that's not helpful. Like you was talking about, that great big tall guy next to your little daughter, and he's helping her through it. And I've talked to adults that are out there, and the person they're competing against for the next place up is helping them. So, when you take a sport where you're helping your competitor get better.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like in this sport, you don't want to beat somebody at their worst. I would hate to stand up on a podium knowing that the only reason I'm there is because somebody had their worst day. It's like, I've never had a great day when everybody in my group, is having a terrible day. And so it's also one of those really awesome things where, you're just all in it together, and sometimes it goes your way and sometimes it doesn't. But at the end of the day, it is about doing your best. You're competing against others. And I mean, there's a level of that's what it's all about at the end of the day.
Yeah.
But, we don't spend all this money and chase these dreams across the country to not be competing against others. But, at the end of the day, we don't want to do that by, seeing others struggle. On our way home, we always kind of debrief, the range. And my husband was telling me about the two guys that was in his group at the IBO Worlds this past weekend. And one of them was having a really hard time. He's like, I think I need to put some more draw length on this. And my husband looked over at him, and, his draw length was a good, couple of inches in front of his face. And he's like, oh, buddy, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And so he'd had a few misses and was just really down on himself and having a hard time. And Todd's like, well, it can't get any worse than that. So why don't we try and get it back on the target for you? And so, he's out there and he's, bow teching it on the range, and he got him back on the target and got him to where he was consistently hitting the target. 'Cause, he's like, he was just down in the dumps and only had a couple arrows left. And, that's not any way to finish the day, and like Todd said, he goes, there was no way that he was going to compete, let alone finish the day with even the arrows left in his quiver. So, why not help him, at least find some dignity to get through the rest of the day. And, at the end of the day, he still needs to go to the shop and get that figured out. There's some major problems there, but at least he got through it. I'm like, look at you fixing bows on the range.
Yeah.
Helping people out.
One of the nice things when you're helping somebody with a problem, I became an archery instructor in '95. So I've been teaching archery for a long time. And every time I'm helping somebody, it's like, oh, watch my video. Misha is like, why aren't I doing what I'm telling them to do? You learn something. And when somebody has a struggle with something, it's like, okay, you got to figure out why they're having this trouble. And in figuring out why, it helps you not only in your form, but teaching the next person. It's like, oh, you had the same problem. Okay, let's do this. Because you just went through all the trouble of helping somebody figure out a problem. And like you said, their draw length was wrong, that's had all kinds of trouble. And, there's things that, you can do to help that out. One of the things I did, of course, my draw length is, more correct, but I'd take a string. When I had my shop, I had a whole great big roll of loop material. So I made a loop that fit around my thumb. That was my draw length. So now I could practice shooting my release. And if the string hung up on my thumb, my form is off. That string should jump straight to the target. And when it does that, okay, I'm on. When I'm struggling, I can grab that and I can shoot that no matter where anybody's at, because I'm not actually shooting anything but a string. And it's just little techniques like that you can have along, so if you're having a problem, go through, you've got that problem fixed. That's some of the things that you learn as you're going along, and it's just so much fun, taking a new person, like the person that's helping you, this person had never shot before and wanted to shoot, and then now look where you're at.
Oh, absolutely. As a coach, like now I've become a coach myself, and, you take someone through that whole mental management and actually developing a process and going through the whole thing and trying to explain to them that it's all about consistency, and consistency through all the challenges. And so I always like to take them from indoor to outdoor. It's easier to develop a consistent shot indoor than it is outdoor. And,
Yeah,
and you
is.
start indoor and you go, okay, well, at least indoor, we're dealing with controlled temperatures and no wind and no weather and all of that. You're just dealing with nerves indoor more than anything, nerves and lighting, kind of thing. But then you take that and you add, range finders and targets differences and weather and wind and all the fun things, footing and all of that good stuff outdoors. But, you have to be a machine, as much as
Right.
possible. And then, we just introduced heart rates, and even my youngest daughter, who is as much of a machine as I've ever seen, she's just amazing. And she's 12, she's still a kid. She's still working through things, but, our coach will have her, run like crazy and then stand up on the lane and shoot. And she's like, I don't know why he makes us run like this. And I'm like, remember what it feels like to stand up there and, shoot head-to-head eliminations? And she's like, well, yeah. I go, and you remember what your heart feels like? Like you're just, and she goes, yeah. I go, what's it feel like right now? She's like, oh, that makes sense. I'm like, yeah, honey, it's like it's hard to have consistency through all of these things and, terrain and nerves and all those things. And yeah, that process is everything. So you can nail that down as much as you can. It's all hard. It's just hard, but that's the
Yeah.
fun of it too. For the moments that I'm shooting my bow, I cannot think about anything else. And so for
Right.
me, that's relaxing. I have so much stuff, I have, an aging parent that needs medical attention, a lot. And I have worries about him. I have older kids that I'm always worried about. I have
Yeah.
other things, I'm a teacher and I'm always worried about my kids in the classroom and what they're doing and subs when I'm on the road. Worrying about coverage for that. I still work, as a hairstylist at home. So I'm always worried about people needing to reschedule their appointments or when they've got things going on and, just everyday things. And my brain doesn't shut down, but when I'm on the line, or on the stake, I can't think about anything else. And that's a powerful thing. And so that's why this is so powerful. It's like, you can't think about anything else. It's a momentary pause, or it should be, I guess.
Yeah.
So it's pretty powerful.
Well, and until, the way, if you're using a wrist strap and have a trigger on it, and you see so many people firing off the tip of their finger. Well, you can't aim and pull and move your finger at the same time. So while you're moving your finger, you're stopped aiming. Even as much as just as little as pulling your trigger finger.
There you
You know,
go.
that's why I would teach, back in the second knuckle, and you don't move the finger. You go through your motion, you back catch release, like I'm sure you're teaching, because
Mhm.
that's how you get better at it.
As subconscious as possible. Yeah.
Yeah. And all that, just thinking about everything else, you have to focus on where the arrow you want it to go. Nothing else. Just focus. I'll tell some of my students, like, okay, see, when I'm trying to get them the concept of not pulling the trigger, I say, okay, hold your arm like you're shooting, hold your finger up. Now, pick that spot on the wall where, I'll find something really small. It's like, focus on that. Now, it can see your eyes. If you break contact with that, it's going to blow up. Now, pull the trigger, move your finger without thinking about it. I can't do it. Then why are you shooting your bow, pulling your finger? Or they say, yeah, I can do that. And switch hand, the opposite hand. And then most of them can't do it. And if I do that and I say, yeah, I can do it, I'm done teaching them.
Yep.
That I can't teach them anything. If you can't get that first initial concept, we're done.
You always
And
make them come up with some stupid phrase while they're trying to do it that they have to say to themselves, like, I don't know, peanut butter and jelly or something. They have to say something in their mind while they're, going through their process, whether it's staring it down or whatever. And, it's like I used to tell my husband all the time, he'd step up to a target that's square between two, tight trees right around that thing. And he'd be like, oh, don't hit the tree. I'm like, you're gonna hit the tree. Like, you just trained your brain to hit the tree. Yeah. Like, you focused on it. I'm like, why would you even use the word tree? You literally told your brain to hit the tree. And sure enough, he'd hit the tree, like, every time. I go, can you please just don't say that? And he's like, oh, so what do I go, I don't know, anything. 12, maybe say 12. I go, actually, don't do that. That's attached to score. That's a whole other subconscious problem. I'm like, just aim, or say aim, or, there it is, or here we go, or something. Like, just don't say tree. Please.
Yeah, anything. And I tell people too, last times, it's what you're thinking about is what you're going to get. And that's the way. There's so many things out there. It's all mental. The mind is going to make you miss or make you hit, depending on what you're thinking about. And like you said, I don't want to hit the tree. You just said you're going to hit the tree, because now you're thinking about the tree, not thinking about your target. And I like to tell people, it's like, just don't think about the American flag. And I'll say that to them. It's like, now what are you thinking about? American flag. I just put in your mind the American flag, or whatever you want it to be. There you can picture, okay, if there's a 12 ring you're going for, you say, okay, center 12 ring, center 12 ring, center 12 ring. And then you draw back and you're concentrating on that center 12 ring. That's all it's in your mind, is that center 12 ring. What's the chance of hitting it? A lot better than than thinking of hitting the tree.
So true. I know. I went through a mad bout of target panic at Lancaster this year, and I didn't understand the power of the subconscious until I experienced that myself. My daughter Claire went through it really badly about 1.5 years ago, and I thought I understood it then. I read all the books and went through all of the training with her, and Coach Glenn in MSU was just like, this is the worst I've ever seen. I cannot believe that she pulled through it like she did. I mean, she blank bailed 200-300 arrows a day going through her process. I mean, it took her 6 months to come back, and I still to this day cannot believe that she made the recovery she did. And then when it hit me, I came off of that line when it took over in tears, going, this is dangerous. Like, I have never experienced a situation where I had absolutely no control. My mind was just doing something that I had no control over. And my husband said, you're not quitting. Like, you're going to hate yourself if you walk off that line. I go, you don't understand. I get my bow back. I don't even know if I'm going to get halfway down on the target before my hands just go. Like, I don't have any control over this. So I started telling myself when I got my bow, like halfway down, like, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Like, I tried everything, like talking myself through everything. And I did make it through without danger. But I was like literally in tears. I came off and gave Claire a huge hug and apologized to her because I had no idea what she had gone through all that time until then. Fast forward, so that was in January. So 2 months later of battling it, trying to go back to basics, just trying to fizzle through as much as I could, to NFAA Indoor Nationals, I was somewhat better-ish.
Somewhat better, huh?
Yeah. I felt a little more confident. On the 5 spots, I could mentally get myself through that. I was able to actually shoot 200-300 rounds by telling myself that to get to the safe space. That was the power of the mind there, is I could bring myself to the safe space. And so what you talk to yourself, or how you talk yourself through your process while you're shooting, is so powerful. And I still use it, like, because I mean, I'm still battling it. This season has been rough. It has been tough. I have not had time to properly get through this panic that I've experienced all summer, all season. It's much better. I'm better at aiming than I was earlier in the season. But it's all a mental, thing, and how you talk to yourself, because it's literally telling myself, I'm in the safe space. It's safe. It's safe. It's
Yeah.
safe. Boom. And it's like, it's so powerful. And so if people would realize more how mental this game is, they could be much stronger in what they're doing, and how important it is to maintain a really, really good headspace, to not put super high expectations of themselves out there when they're competing or even hunting. I mean, I think you go out there and you just have this expectation of yourself, or these super over, exaggerated belief in what you can physically do, and you're making terrible shots on animals that you are really not able to make, that are not necessarily ethical, and just really go out there and have real expectations of what you're able to do, and the mindset of what you've got going, so that you can make great shots, because the headspace is the big part of it. You'll be much more successful with everything you do if you've got a great mental management, a real great, mental game. Then you're not pulling back on it. Like, I mean, some of that you're just excited, but some of it is not being properly prepared to begin with, working in the bow shops. It's like some of these people, they'll go out and they're buying their broadheads the night before, at Walmart or something. They've never even sighted in their bows, or they're not prepared, or they're not doing their things. And then you go out there and they're not ready. And some of that's all part of that mentally being ready for what they're doing. But, it's just kind of getting ready for it mentally and physically. It's a lot.
Yeah, and your broadheads don't shoot like your field tips.
No.
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 And when you set up like a dozen arrows, for hunting with a dozen broadheads, all 12 are not going to hit in the same spot. You got to tune them. And, on mine, I use fixed blades, and I'm not real fond of mechanicals, especially at the lower weights. The higher weights it did. But as the bows got faster and faster, it's hard to get fixed blades to actually fly consistently. So that's where the mechanicals help on that. I do have a set. I never shot them. I just shoot my muzzies because I know they work. I know how they work out of my hunting bow, and I don't worry about how it shoots field tips on that bow. I just grab the other bow if I want to shoot field tips. Or if I'm practice field to that one, I know it's not going to hit where I'm aiming because the broadheads do. And you can tune them in so that the broadheads hit. And I always have extra blades. So I just put dull blades in, not the practice blade, just the regular broadhead blades. I shoot those and put them in a broadhead target. And then when I get ready, I put in the sharp ones and I'm ready to go.
Well, and it's so hard because I don't put a lot of time into, my hunting setup and my pin setup. And so at IBO Worlds, I had to make a decision between my open setup that I shoot all year long and, going, oh, I really want to go into the hunter class so I can shoot my pin setup and make sure I'm good with that and put some time behind it. And so I did that this last weekend. It was a lot of fun, but, I'm highly critical of how well I shoot that hunter setup. I have a couple of friends that I have shot with in the past. One of them I don't even really talk with much anymore because we have a difference of opinion when it comes to, the caliber of shooting you should have when you're going out and hunting. And I've always been super critical of myself because I'm so critical of how well, you should be tuning, your arrows and your bows and things like that. And so I always get teased because the bow manager at our, shop at Gold Star Outdoors, which is in Edmore here in Michigan that we work with. He's always like, you are just fine. Go out and hunt. You are a good shot. You're a good shot. And I go, I'm not quite good enough with this setup yet, and he's like, oh my gosh, knock it off, and he's like, that setup is great. You're a great shot. You're good. Because, this one former friend of mine, she used to go, oh, I suck at this target shooting. And so I'm just going to hunt. And I'm like, now, wait a minute. You're telling me that you can't shoot a foam animal at 30 yards or less that doesn't move and hit the 10 ring with a field point.
Yeah.
And
go
a range finder and a solid 3 minutes. So I have a difference of opinion on that. And so it's really hard for me. So a lot of times, if I don't have a lot of time to make sure that my setup is right on and do that, I'm just really overcritical of myself. But it doesn't mean you have to. I'm just overcritical of myself. So it felt really good to get behind my hunting setup and my pins this last weekend, so that I can actually get in the woods this fall and feel really good behind it. Because I just feel like I need to feel really confident. If I'm going to get out there, I want to make a good ethical shot, and I want to make sure that I'm hitting behind the pin and my arrows are tuned and everything's good to go.
Yeah, just along those lines, one of the clubs I was in for a while, we had what's called a broadhead tune-up day, where normally you can't shoot broadheads in an indoor range because they just, for one, they're going to tear up the targets, and two, you may not get it out of them because they're not designed for it. So we had them in, we come in, would work with them, and we had a target set up at 10 yards. I was amazed how many couldn't even hit the target at 10 yards.
Yeah.
And yet they're going to go hunt. It's like, and that's why we did it, because, we all make bad shots. I missed the deer at 10 yards because I forgot to aim. I just drew up, looked at the deer. I forgot to take the bow and put the pins even on it. None of the pins are even on the deer, and I couldn't figure out, it's like, why? So I put my field tip in and picked out a leaf and hit it. Yeah, okay. Now I know what happened. I forgot to aim. Forgot to aim. And we all do that.
And that's the part of it. And I think that's why I'm so critical of myself. I'm like, because the parts I can control is half of it. There's so much uncontrollable stuff that, it's like, if I can at least minimize the stuff that I can control, then the uncontrollable stuff, everything else that I have no control over might minimize the fact that, it might be pretty detrimental on the other side of it. Because yeah, there's just other things that are just out of your control there.
Yeah, I know when I worked at Vassar one time, this guy come in and wanted a scope put on his rifle. And he was going to go hunt the next day. And he figured bore sight would be good enough. Well, the guy was setting up, made sure that scope was off so far you'd never hit anything. If you're not going to go and at least take a couple of shots to see where it's at.
That's scary.
You know, so he made sure it wasn't going to get wounded animals, because bore sighting is going to get you close on the paper is all it's designed to do. You know, and the same thing when we set up the bows. You know, I've set them up so many times that, you know, I can get that rest pretty darn close, you know, both the windage and elevation, put the sights on. I know just right about where the sights need to be. I kind of get them roughed in. But if you don't go shoot them, yeah, I'm gonna not want you to go out, because you got to at least shoot it. The nice thing about it in a range, you're already there and you're setting it up, go take some shots.
Right.
Yeah, at least you have some, okay, my 20-yard pin is on. If you haven't changed anything, you know, then you're all right. But you know, your 30, 40-yard pins, if you haven't ever set them, then you don't know where they're at. And a lot of times, if we're not going to set those up with the 10-yard pin, I'll set the 10 and move the other ones all the way down. You know, if we can do that, it's like you got 10 yards, 10 to 15 yards, all you can take. Anything more than that, you're not set up for it. You know,
Exactly.
go out and set that 20 and then set that 30. And
it's so sad because you know, I'm a huge advocate for bow hunting and getting into target archery and doing that. Like, I want everybody to get involved. You know, I want every single person I meet to get involved. There's so much good, but you cannot half it. You know,
no,
there's too much on the line. That's what gives, you know, hunting a bad rap. That's what, you know, gives people that, because, you know, one or two people that go out and just kind of maim something because they aren't prepared, or they're, you know, they're just kind of out flinging arrows or doing things that, unfortunately, that's what's given it a bad rap. Whereas, you know, people that are going out and they're prepared and they're taking it seriously and they're feeding their families, you know, by filling their freezers, you know, doing the right thing. And, you know, you can do everything right and still make a bad shot. They could get spooked at the last second, something, you know, something was in the way, you didn't quite see something, you know, it's still, you can do everything right and it still isn't perfect.
that little branch that's smaller than your little finger that you can't see, you know, unless you're really straight in to see it. It's like
there's still the uncontrollable. However, you know, the other side of that is that. And so it's really hard. That's why I'm so, I'm such an advocate for the kids getting involved in S3DA or 4-H, or getting that involved so early on, so that they're getting these skills right away and they're learning the foundation of it, so that they understand that this is not something that you learn 5 days before you decide you want to go in the woods, you know, and that there's so much more to it, you know, and just developing those skills to be able to go out and have some fun with it. And then finding that, you know, hey, there's a whole side of this that you can go out and, you know, set some goals and compete and meet a whole new, you know, group of people that you find like have similar values and, you know, we literally call them our archery family. Like, we have a whole group of people that are an extended family of ourselves. We literally call them our second family. And so now we travel all over the country and see our, you know, our second family. So, and it all lends back to that. It's just getting people involved in those things. And I hope that advocacy continues to show that, hey, there's so much more to this than, you know, whether you hunt or if you do this for sport, either way, it feeds a lot of different things.
Yeah, and I've had people, you know, asking if they shoot a bow, and it's like, well, I don't want to hunt.
Okay.
That's not what I asked you.
Right.
You know, you know, you should, you know, a bow doesn't mean you hunt.
Right.
Some just like to just fling arrows in the backyard with the kids, and
Absolutely.
others like to go to tournaments. You can go anywhere from just grabbing a stick, put a string on it, and grab another stick and shooting off your hand and go from there. That's archery.
Absolutely.
That's how it started, actually, but you can take it as far as you want to go. And, like you've done, you got into this a few years ago, and now, as looking on your profile, and your staff shooters, and you rep all these different companies. And tell us a little bit, how you got into being able to, represent the different manufacturers.
Yeah. So, let's see. So I started with, just being involved in the local bow shop. So, I mentioned Gold Star Outdoors. So we have a
Right.
small cottage in Crystal, Michigan. Now we have an Airbnb. We rent it as an Airbnb because we're never there. It sat there for 2 summers and we didn't even visit it, other than to go see our bow shop and, take Claire to practice at her S3DA thing. So now it's an Airbnb where we stay at other Airbnbs when we're traveling. But so we started with that. We got involved there. We started helping out and being really involved in that. And then I believe, I'm trying to think who our first, I believe it was Gold Tip. We went to one of the first pro-ams. So I believe it was the ASA London pro-am. And we were in the team shoot. And Claire was on the team shoot with Tim Gillingham. And she's a pretty amazing shot. So of course she really impressed him. And he was like, who is this little girl and where'd she come from? And so she got talking with him and he said, I want you to send me a little shooter resume. I want to see what you've been doing, locally, and talk to her or talk to him about that. And so we sent that in when it came time to be, to apply. And so we put that together. We had no idea what that meant. I had to go do some research and figure that out. And since then, we figured out like, oh, so, you have to list your accomplishments and talk about how you can benefit their company. So the first thing you need to do is shoot the products and equipment that you like. You should definitely like the products and equipment that you want to represent. You should definitely believe in it. Everything that we shoot, we shoot because we like it. We believe it's top quality equipment. We can explain why we shoot it, how it works. I can show the features and benefits of it. I can tell you what it costs. I can tell you where to get it. So we're kind of like walking, talking spokespeople.
Yeah.
I shoot many different types of archery. So, and what I mean by that is like we shoot indoor, outdoor field, target, 3D. We just like it all. So we tend to shoot a lot of it. So I am a little bit silly when it comes to like arrows. Like I like fresh arrows all the time. And so, my husband teases me that I probably have the most arrows of our entire family. I have like buckets and buckets full of arrows. So I'm always building new arrows and have all of that. So I knew right away I needed to get into representing some arrows. So I always have different things that I can let people try or show them, like trying different things. But I've always got different setups going. So I have an indoor setup, an outdoor setup, indoor target, outdoor target, 3D, a field setup. And I have different types of bows and stabilizers and things like that. So it lends itself for me to be able to represent companies and their equipment fairly easy because I don't just have one setup. It's a lot harder for you to be able to offer that for, a variety of companies right away, unless you're in the professional division, if you don't shoot a lot of different things right away. So as an amateur, I'm fortunate because we do shoot a lot of different types of things and bows. So yeah, we're always setting something up. So we're fortunate to be one of the few amateurs that are factory staff for gas bowstrings, but I probably, keep them pretty busy in our household alone, keeping all of our bows and fresh strings. But yeah, it's fun. We really like our equipment, and so we keep it on there. But it's really about being able to be marketable for a company is how you get started with it. But it's more about just being able to explain the features and benefits and why you really like it. But it starts with just liking the equipment. I talk to a lot of people that are like, hey, how do you get started with the company? And most people just think that it's like, oh, I just want free product, or if I want things. And a lot of times it just starts with like getting a discount on something you already own. Well,
Right. Yeah.
I mean, that's what sponsors are. You're gonna get a shooter discount for something that you probably already own. And so
Yeah.
it's really just enjoying what you shoot. And if you want to represent them, then you'll get a discount on, something that you need to purchase to replace it, or maybe you'll get another one, but you're gonna know what's coming out, or maybe you'll be able to get the first shipment of a brand new product, or they might send something to you to try ahead of time. So there's benefits in that, but for the most part, you just get to represent, a company that you believe in, and be part of their staff, and just represent something that you truly enjoy shooting. So I think people just kind of have a different view of what a sponsor is, until you're in the professional division, and actually
Right.
collecting a paycheck from them. Us amateurs, it isn't as prestigious, I think, as a lot of people think it is.
Yeah, I know when I had my store, my staff shooters, they could get a bow every year at cheaper than what I could get them for. They were less than wholesale. The shooters got a better price than I could get them for. Now there wasn't much markup in your bows anyway, but they were
Right.
expected to have the latest bow. So when I was doing at PSE, they changed their main line every other year. So you had 2 years to shoot that bow. And the thought behind it is, okay, you buy the bow, you buy all your accessories, all really good price, and then you shoot it for a year or 2 years, and then you buy a new one and you sell the old one for almost what you paid for the new one. After 3 or 4 bows, you're pretty much shooting free bows because you've sold enough that you're paying for your new equipment. And but you're expected to bring traffic into the store. You're out
Exactly.
shooting and you're representing the store. Last times you'll have their shirts on, so you're representing the store, and so you're marketing for the store. And when somebody sees you winning, and you've got your Matthews t-shirt on, and is like, okay, that's advertising for the Matthews bow. So whether you
Exactly.
had to pay for it, you got a discount or whatever, that is the bow that you represent. I had a Matthews in the past until I became a PSC dealer. Now I have PSC bows. But all the top bow manufacturers, they all shoot good.
Oh, for sure. I mean, the technology has gotten so, good that the manufacturers are all producing wonderful things. Like I have, good friends and family, they're super happy, with whatever manufacturer they're shooting. And so, you see all the top archers moving around with companies that they're super happy with. So, I mean, you've got great archers, they can pretty much shoot whatever, you put in their hand. They're going to be able to make it work for themselves. They know
Yeah.
what they need to do to make any of these top of the line bows work for them. I just happen to be partial to Matthews. I like the way they look. I like the way they feel. I'm just partial to them. They aren't cutting me a big check because I'm not a professional archer. So, I get to pick what I like looking at. Maybe in the future that'll be a little bit different, but right now I get to pick what I like looking at. So it's one of those things,
I,
but the professionals, they have to do what's right for them because it's their job, it's their
right.
livelihood.
Yeah,
And
I've
so it's
talked
a
to a few of
different
them that
thing.
that's their job. And if they're sick and can't go to shoots, their income goes to zero because they're not getting paid
Exactly.
unless they win at the tournaments. And,
Exactly.
and
Right
some
now
bow
it's
manufacturers,
my fun,
oh
so I
yeah,
get to just represent what I like. And so I get to just pick what I like. But, if it becomes my full-time job, that would be a different situation, but it's not, it's my fun gig.
yeah, it can be a lot of fun, just trying different things out. And of course, I like to just kind of stay, I don't like to do a lot of changing. My hunting bow is a 2001 bow that I got when I bought my store, went down to PSE. And at that time I was shooting the Matthews Q2. I saved up and I got one of those, and it set up perfectly. The first time I shot it through paper back when everybody was thinking you have to shoot through paper. Shot a perfect hole. First arrow, perfect hole. It's like great shooting bow. And I go down to dealer school, and part of the dealer school cost is you get a bow. And I was okay, I'm shooting the Matthews Q2. Which one of these should I have that's going to be as good as this bow? And end up getting the 2001 PSE Carrera. And I liked it even better. That's
Not
still what I hunt with. And then I have another one that's a 2003 bow that I got. It's a PSE. And, they're there. I've changed a few things on them. On my second bow, I did put a drop away on it. When I was working at Cabela's, we got returns in and I was able to get a bear. I don't remember which model it was. It's in a snow camo, and it knew it was selling for like $900 just for the plain bow. This has been, probably 5 years ago, something like that. So it was a high-end bow.
Yeah.
It still sits downstairs in my safe with new string. I had put new strings on it. I had to fix the string stop. I fixed all that, but I've never done anything with it. It's like I like the other bows,
Well,
and
and it's like I think actually my first target bow, my husband's like, when are you gonna shoot? When are you gonna sell that? Like you hardly, I'm like, I just like that bow. I just have always liked it. I don't shoot it very often. I just really like it, but I'm partial to them. I have a hard time letting them go. But it's one of those things, but I don't know, like the new Matthews is coming out soon. It debuts, I think, in just a couple of days, like the 16th or 17th or no, it's
yeah,
September, isn't it? I should know. They just debuted
I know.
it at the Classic. I think Levi and Dan McCarthy were shooting them. There was like 5 or 6, the pros that were shooting the new Matthews title bow that's coming out. It's going to be in a 36 and 38 length. And normally I'm like, oh, get it on order. I got to get the new one.
Oh, they're going back to a bit longer bows instead of getting shorter and shorter and shorter, making them harder and harder to shoot.
Yeah, I got the phase 4 last year. That's what I'm shooting. That's my hunting setup. And I love it. It's quiet. It's an awesome bow, but I'm partial to longer when my 36 is my favorite. I have the 38 G2. It's a super smooth bow. I use that for indoor, but I have the Gen 1 38. That's truly my favorite. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm gonna rush right out and get that one. We'll see. I don't know. I can't remember if the launch date is August or if it's September. I think it might be September 16th or something, but it's coming out. I gotta make a decision because I gotta get it on order if I'm gonna do it. But yeah, all
Like,
new technology and stuff. So we'll see. I've been liking my current setup, so I don't know.
why change if you like it, right?
Right. And that's the thing. Like you say you don't change a lot of things about them. Lately, I'd say in the last year or so, I used to change my setup a lot. I'd tweak it and tweak my sight tapes and tweak things here and there all season. And this year I didn't tweak much. I didn't need to. I didn't feel like I needed to. I felt like I put a lot of time into making sure that it was really accurate to begin with.
Right.
And I didn't feel like I needed to. I didn't have a lot of fluctuation. I didn't get down to any of the shoots this year and go, oh, I'm, 3 yards off or 5 yards. I didn't have any of that. I don't have a lot of fluctuation shooting gas bowstrings. I don't have a lot of stretch. I don't get peep rotation. I don't get any of that stuff like I used to before I started shooting them. And it's pretty much spot on. I mean, it was right there. And so I just didn't have much fluctuation and stuff. And so now I'm like, oh, do I really want to get a new bow? That takes a lot of work, like getting that all
It does.
set up and doing that. But like I said, I'm kind of crazy about my arrows. So I weigh every component and I match them all up. Like I weigh every single point and every single fletch and every single thing. And I am so specific about making sure that every single one of my arrows all matches to like within 1 grain difference of each other. So when I make a new batch of arrows, I have like new builds, and I can tell you that new builds of arrows fly different. So I'm kind of short on new builds right now. And so I'll have to kind of play with my tape a little bit with new builds if I can't get them perfect. But yeah, I haven't had to mess with things. So now looking at like a whole new bow is going to take quite a bit of work for the new season. So that may make a decision as to whether or not I look at those things. But that's why I love the sport, because that's how my mind works. It feeds different things for different people. I'm that type A personality that I can literally do that with my arrows, and it drives my husband nuts. But, for me, I'm like, that's okay. You just leave me alone. I've got my coffee and 3 hours of making the perfect, beautiful dozen set of brand new arrows for this weekend shoot, kind of thing. So it's cool.
It's funny you'd say that, because back when we were shooting aluminum arrows, I took a dozen arrows. I was shooting the double X 78s. They're 1,500 straightness, which carbons now is 1, which is all I'll shoot. But I fletched them because I use 4-inch feathers. So I fletched them, had the knock insert in there and the knock on it, and then I weighed the arrow. No insert, no tip. I wrote on the shaft how much it weighed in grains. I got on a grain scale, so I got a pretty accurate weighing of it. And then I took and I wrote all those down, and then I weighed all my tips, because when you get a bag of 100 tips, they can vary anywhere from 95 to 105, for 100 grain tip. So I'd go through and I'd weigh and I'd find all those, I'd match them all up. And then I got down, I was even filing the back of the insert. There's an extra piece on the back, you don't really need it. So I'm filing the back of the insert. I got the whole dozen arrows within a half a grain.
Perfect.
Could I tell the difference in my shooting? No.
Well, that's the other side of it. My husband's always like, I can't tell the difference in my shooting. I go, yeah, but I can. So it makes the difference for me. He's like, well, I can't.
Well, my thought was, if the arrows weigh the same, then they're going to have the same drop. They're going to leave the bow at the same speed, same weight, same drop. It's going to put them in the same hole every time, as long as I can do my part the same. And, when you're hunting at 20 yards or less, you can be off by an inch and it's no big deal. But, back with aluminums, those, the shooters now don't have to worry about this as much with the carbons. But I would group, I could put them in the X ring fairly consistently. But then by the time I'm about ready to get new arrows, I'm struggling to keep them in the white ring, not just the X, but in the white. And, on the 5 spot. And then get new arrows, boom, tighten right up again. And the problem with aluminums is, how do you break a piece of aluminum? You bend it, keep bending it, and it'll break. So as you shoot, anybody hasn't watched a slow motion video of an arrow, that arrow is just, like you're doing. Yeah, it's just wobbling all over the place, because it can't be stiff, so it's flexing. And on aluminum, when you flex aluminum, now that 1,500 tolerance, every time you shoot it, it goes down, the number goes up. So now you might be 1.55, 1.6, it's going up, so instead of going down in tolerance, now next thing you know, you got a 2,000, a 5,000, or even a 10,000 straightness. And then you have to worry about it being bent.
Controlling the controllables. So if you can get it as close in weight as you can, you've now controlled one more variable that you have control over. In my mind, like if you can control one more variable that you didn't have control over before, then it's one little bit closer.
Yeah, it was kind of funny. You said how you signed them up so they're all consistent, and that was a lot of work. Somebody said, "Well, can you do it for me? I'm going to charge you more for the work than he is for the arrows."
I talked about that with somebody. They're like, "Well, I mean, don't you go into the bow shop and get this stuff done?" I go, "Absolutely not. I don't know a single bow shop that does what I do for my setup. I don't know a single one." And they're like, "What? Well, I don't understand." I said, "Well, I learned, and I know a lot of great bow shops. I mean, Gold Star is amazing. There's Shoe Pegs and Jackson near us. There's great bow shops all around us, and bow shops with great bow techs, and they do that. But when we're talking about custom target setup, when we're talking about getting you to the next level with a custom target setup, you have to do your own work, or you're going to pay $1 million for it, because the custom time consuming effort that it takes, you could never pay a qualified bow tech to do, because it's the tedious little tweaking and manipulation of things until it's just right. I have gone out in the barn and had my husband work on something for me until 3 a.m. until it feels just right. Like, I can't have a bow tech, at the local shop do that for me. I can't be like, no, I still hear it. No, I feel it. There's just a tiny little pull to the left, just a tiny little bit, like, I don't get to do that, whereas at home, we finally learned over the last couple of years, like I teased my husband, I feel like every tournament we came home from, we'd have something fail or something break or something go wrong, or something that either we put a new piece of equipment in our tool bag, or we had to come home and YouTube it, learn from somebody we knew, go to the shop and ask, or, a new piece of equipment. And it took us about 1.5 years to get basic skills. And then, probably another 1.5 years to get medium skills. And now we're finally getting into the fine tuning of, the little in and outs of things, and we'll never learn everything. As you know, you never stop learning. And so just getting into some of those ins and outs of that stuff, but you have to learn how to do those things on your own. You just have to, because you're just never going to be able to go to a shop and learn those things. You have to be able to shoot your bow and feel it and see it and learn how to make the adjustments so that you can get the tune on it and know that, my arrow's doing that. Maybe I better learn, turn the knock and see if it flies a little different, to the right, or, that is arrow number 6. And it has been shooting slightly high left. And maybe if I turn it a quarter turn to the, right, let's see if it starts hitting back where it should. And maybe something's breaking down in it, or, whatever. And, if you don't pay attention to the little things, it's really easy to get caught up in it and just start blaming, things that have nothing to do with little tweaks that can just be made.
Well, and when you go to a shop, you get a dozen arrows to reflect on 12 different jigs.
Yep.
Set up close, but not exactly the same.
Sometimes by 3 different people on lunch breaks.
Yeah, it could be. But I know when I had my store, I had 8 Bitzenbergers, and then I had 12 of the little plastic BPEs, and I had a Jojan that did 6. Those were straight, or I could do a little bit of an offset. Well, the other ones I could do helical on them, on the BPEs, but the Bitzenbergers I had the straight fletch as well, and then I can fletch it with the cock feather down or out. So I had both receivers, but you're getting it fletched on 12 different jigs that are set up 12 different ways. A shop's not going to use one jig to do a whole dozen arrows, and they're not going to time. And before hunting season, all my jigs were full.
Oh, yeah.
Nonstop.
Sure.
You're putting them on and you're fletching them, because I stock no fletched arrows. I 100%. You pick the fletching you want and the colors you want.
Which is pretty awesome.
So I just stocked all the 3 and 4 inch veins and 4 and 5 inch feathers, because I had traditional guys that like the 5 inch feathers, and me being from the 60s, I shoot feathers. I still shoot feathers, and
No, I found a love
my kids shoot
this year.
Well, and there's a couple different things that between feathers and veins. One thing, the traditional guys, feathers are still the best way to go, because they fold out of the way easier. But there is some veins now that's designed for, shooting off recurves and stuff. But your vein has less resistance and a little bit lighter, or a little bit heavier, I think, for the same, both 4 inch. Now the feather has more resistance, more drag, but it's lighter. So initially off the bow, you're faster with a feather, but it has more drag. At a certain point, your veins are going to maintain their speed longer because there's less drag, and your feather's going to slow down. And PSE did a little research on, whether offset or helical or which one was better for stabilizing, and they found the more spin you put on them, at some point, once the circular velocity exceeds the forward velocity, it's kind of like a parachute, they just drop. So the more spin they put on it, the quicker it would drop, because the faster it's spinning. And so just an offset will stabilize your broadhead just as well as a real hard helical. Now, at the carbon arrows, you can't get much of a helical on them because there's just not room. So that's some of the things that you learn in different things. And we talked earlier about making a shot, taking a shot you can make and be comfortable making it. Well, they said down there at the PSE school, they had a group of people, and they were teaching, just guys and ladies, and a mix of different archers, and they had this bionic deer sitting out there, basically a steel plate with the vitals cut out. For those that don't know what a bionic deer is, different places call them something different, but it's a steel plate with the vitals cut out. And I went to the first one, how far do you think you can shoot this? Getting the point across that, okay, I could shoot it from here. Clink, destroyed the arrow. Next guy, well, a little bit closer, a little bit closer. All the guys started to take a long shot. Said, I can make that shot. They all destroy their arrow. One of the ladies in there says, I think I feel comfortable about 20 yards. Went up to 20 yards and she nailed it, because she knew what she could do and shot it. Sometimes guys do that, sometimes not. But in all the teaching I've done, the ladies are the best students.
Well, I think that there's an element of, how do I say this? We aren't as afraid to look weak amongst our friends. If I don't know if that's the right way to say it or not. Like when I go, I'm volunteering for the weekend, it's part of being part of a bow shop. I got to go and put my time in.
Right.
And it always cracks me up, because we have guys come in, and one, they think I know nothing, when they see me, because they're like, oh, I need one of the guys to help me. And I'm like, that's fine. I'll find you a guy, but they're busy. I'm available, and I'm more than capable to help you with basics, with the bow, trust me. But they are always like, well, I go, well, what are you shooting now? Or what are you comfortable pulling back? Or, do you have any idea what draw weight you're looking for or whatever? And they're like, well, 70, 80 pounds. And I'm looking at them and like, there's no way. There's no way. No way. And even like my, older daughter, she's in her 20s, her friends will come over and they'll want to shoot with us. And I'm like, well, have you ever shot a bow? And I'll go, well, no. Okay, well, what draw weight are you comfortable? Do you think you should? Well, I don't know. I mean, what's, comfortable? I go, well, average, draw weight of a bow is 40 to 70 pounds, but if you've never pulled a bow back, you need probably 50 pounds is going to be the most you're going to be able to pull back. And they're just sky drawing and trying to pull back, and they're trying, and it's like, will you please stop? And they're just trying to look macho. And I think that's part of that. Like, there's nothing wrong with stepping up to a target confidently at 35 yards and being like, I'm going to nail that. You don't have to step back at 70 yards and nail it. If you cannot do that, isn't it more embarrassing to be stepping at 70 yards and go clink and bust your arrow in 3 pieces than to step at 40 and nail it? Like, I just think that is much more, I don't know, prestigious to nail it at 30 or 40 yards than it is to step back at 60 or 70 and bust your arrow in 3 pieces. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I guess I'm just more real, I guess, when it comes to that. I think it's much cooler to see you nail it, what you're comfortable shooting, than it is for you to think you got a pair of kahunas and can step back there at 80 and just like bust it in 9 pieces.
Well, and when you look at what are the draw weight, a lot of your indoor archers, even the guys are shooting. Yeah, they might be shooting 40 pounds.
Yards.
Yeah, 20 yards. But they don't care if it lobs way up and down into it, as long as it's consistent. And
exactly.
And that's one of the things that, fortunately in the Archery Talk 101 Facebook group, we have people that want to be in there to learn. So we don't have a lot of those in there that say, well, I'm doing it right, you can't teach me anything. But outside of that, I've seen that in a lot of places where a lot of times I can size up whether the guy is going to take advice or not by the time I talk to him for about 30 seconds. You can just tell the attitude. And out of all the people I've had, I had one lady that had that attitude out of all the hundreds of people I've taught. They're like, okay, we're done. I'm not going to waste my time, and that's one of the things, when I'm going to coach a student, it's like, are you open to be coachable?
Oh, it's huge.
If you're not, and then another question is, are you willing to put in the work? If you're not willing to put in the work, I can't help you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Go on and do something different. And, there's a lot of people out here that want to learn. And if you're willing to learn, we're all going to help you. That's the fun part.
That's the best part about it. Like coaching these kids on our S3DA team, we did a huge mental management program for the entire indoor season. Not this past season, but the year before. And I led that with them, and it was really cool. And about half the kids took it really serious. And the other half, it was just like, oh, should we keep doing this? And half of them were like, yes, I got so much out of it. But, the half that didn't pay attention and didn't write down their process and didn't do those things, that just kind of made it disheartened you, because you're like, you don't understand how important this is. And when you're out on the range and you're crying in your pillow and you're going back to the hotel and you're whining and crying, and you're not understanding when you're showing up to the tournament and not shooting perfect 300s when you've never even shot a 250, which I still don't understand how you're upset with yourself going to a national tournament when you've never shot one in practice. It's like, you have to be open. You have to be open to learning. You have to be open to hearing and absorbing, and then putting it to practice. This
right,
whole,
yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'll try that. Okay. And then just going back to whatever you were like doing before is not it. But actually going back, like my husband's funny, when he works with the coach that we work with, he'll actually tell him, like, one of the things that he's really working on is dropping his front shoulder. He has a real hard time relaxing his front shoulder. And He just naturally is really tense in his front shoulder, and he wants to work on it more than our coach thinks it's a problem. And so he's been trying to tell him, like, I really want to relax that and really drop that into it. And so coach has given him a couple things to work on. He's trying to relax it. And so he'll look him right in the eye and he'll go, Coach, I'm really trying to do what you're saying. And I know it doesn't look like I'm doing it, but I am really trying to apply what you've told me to do. I don't want you thinking I'm ignoring you. And he's like, I got it, Todd. I got it. I get that you're really trying. Because he's like, I don't want you thinking that I'm not doing what you told me to do. It's just for some reason, this stupid shoulder will not do it kind of thing. Because you do. I mean, you give so much of yourself when you're trying to help someone. And then when they don't take, the information and actually try what you're giving, it's hard. It's hard to keep giving of yourself. And yet at the same time, it's also not good for new archers to be trying to get information from 97 sources either.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the other side of it. So I've learned to finally step back a little bit, and when somebody seeks help from me, to just start asking them, like, where have you reached out to recently for help in this? Who have you spoken to? Are you working with somebody right now? One, I don't want to step on anybody else's toes.
Right.
And two, I want to make sure that if you are reaching out to me for personal advice, that, if I'm going to give you, my one-on-one, attention, that I understand the expectation that you have for me. Like, either you're looking for some real advice from me, or you're looking for some passing advice from me. Like, are you looking for just like general information, or are you looking for me to give you some real direction here? Because I also don't want somebody to ask, for some real direction and have me pass them off either. Because I would hate to disappoint someone too. So, because it's hard, I've had people, come to me, and I thought that they were coming to me on a regular basis. And we make out a map of like our plan for getting through, a whole series of things. And then I find out they went and talked to 9,000 people. And I mean, as well as I do, there's so many right ways to do things, but they're all very different. And so you can actually end up hurting yourself more by working with 9, different people on the same problem or same issue, than trying to work with one person or a couple, people on something versus, trying to have so many sources to fix something.
Well, and last times too, if you find out they have a coach, then I'm not going to teach them the way I teach it. I'm going to actually just ask them questions. Okay. What did your coach tell you to do?
Exactly.
So now then I'm going to reinforce what the coach told them to do. It may not be the way I do it. I know, like a couple weekends ago, I helped out. Nebraska has a Women in the Outdoors event where the ladies come out and they shoot a bow, they shoot a gun, they shoot a shotgun, they go kayaking. I think there's all kinds of stuff in the outdoors, and they teach an open stance. So instead of being straight off to the side, which is I teach, they teach a bit more open. Now, shooting the Genesis bows, if you shoot the way I tell you to shoot and you're too long, you're going to smack your arm 100% of the time. You're going to hit your arm. So they teach in, and I know why they teach in, because this is brand new. Drawing's going to be too long. Get that arm out of the way, because a new shooter's never shot, hits their arm, they're done. So you kind of need to know where they're coming from too. If somebody like that, okay, I can help you in that, doing that type of a stance, because I know that's what we've got to teach for that. And, the one is like, yeah, I teach, toes pointing right straight to it. They teach moving them back, so it'll be an open stance, because it gets that arm out of the way. The way I teach it, if you don't hold the bow right, you're hitting your arm. If you put your arm out too far, you're hitting your arm. So there's too many things that I have to get correct before you can even doing that. And
Absolutely.
I teach completely side. pushing straight to your target. The arm should go straight to your target. Your toes should line up to the target. But I'm also going through the hand, so the hand's not straight. It's turned off to the side, so it goes through here like
I
probably
make
how
the
you're
kids
shooting
draw
it.
a line. I'm like,
Yeah,
draw a
yeah.
line, put it right on the bow, stop.
And when I'm teaching, the little bit older ones, I'll ask them, had any martial arts experience? And if they say no, then I go on. But if they do yes, I say, okay, you know what a heel palm strike is? Yeah. Okay, that's what we're pushing a bow with, because that is strike, this part right here, not
Nice.
up here, not over here, not over, because it makes your hand turn.
Then you're
And
tweaking
right
it.
here. Yeah, and you're tweaking. And then some people will say, well, curl these fingers in and put them on the side. How much pressure are you putting on the bow? That does force your hand to be in the correct position, but now you've got pressure on the bow. Any pressure on the bow changes. Can you be 100% consistent? No. Pressure here, all the way you can do it. And I've shown some, it's like, okay, you're going to push that, hold your arm out. I push on this part of the arm. Where do you feel it? All the way through your back, clear to the other shoulder when you push on that part. Now I'm going to push off the side. Where do you feel it? Well, on the wrist. Where do you want the force to go? All the way through your body. And, some of the things I learned from, doing martial arts for 20
Yeah,
some years,
I
I
like
incorporate,
it.
because I was doing that before I learned how to do back tension release.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm incorporating everything I learned from doing Hapkido. Is what I did. It was a lot of joint locks, arm bars, throws, pressure points, and all that kind of stuff. And then I put the punching knuckle, one of the two punching knuckles, on the index finger, right at that joint. You put that, there's a pressure point behind your jaw, below your ear. There's a pressure point that it can be very painful as long as you're stimulating it. If you're not stimulating, it doesn't. Put that knuckle right back there, bone on bone. That's the most solid way you can do. Now you're solid all the way through. And that's just the way I teach it. And that's what works best for me. That's how I teach it. Then I go through and explain why I'm doing it. Like it is. Here's why you want to push there. Here's why you want to do this. And if I explain why, now a lot of people understand why they want to do that. And then once we go through all that, we're going to mix it up, because your body, my body, everybody else's body is not the same, don't work the same. Like your husband, he has a problem with the shoulder going up. Well, that could be a lot of different things. Now, if he is raising it up, he's going to have shoulder problems, guaranteed. In few years, I don't know how many, but you will have shoulder problems. A lot of old archers have shoulder problems because they used to straighten that arm as far as they can out there and raise that shoulder up, shoulder problems. I actually had a physical therapy on the podcast. Oh, it's probably been a little over a year ago anyway. We talked about that, how to recover from that. And, I have a lot of different people on here. In fact, I had, Benjamin Summers on here a week ago.
Oh, yeah.
True Ball, you probably know him.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I had him on a week ago. I think it just, well, you'll be able to look in the group, but it just published here on, when was that? The 7th of this month. A week ago is when it come out on the podcast. Now the podcasts come out on Mondays and Fridays on Spotify. You can also get them on Audible. They're free to listen to on Audible. And then on my YouTube channel on Mondays and Saturdays. And then on the archtalk101.com site, you can get them there, but I don't consistently post them out every time. I'll go and I'll catch up a few of them and go from there.
Say,
But
I think I listened to a few of them on Spotify when we were
Yeah.
traveling. So
yeah, we get all kinds of different conversations, where from, like your daughter, I'm glad to get her on here one time, or your husband, get
yeah.
Todd on here. I did interview a young lady quite a while ago now from Canada, and she was on interesting, and her dad was there, and we got him on the podcast too. When you have she was 14, dad's going to stay there and see what's on the podcast.
Yeah, for sure.
Make sure it's all up and up. I can hear him in the background. We invited him on, and she has that mental attitude that we were talking about earlier. She's got that attitude. I know we'll see her in the Olympics one of these days.
Mhm.
Probably pretty soon, because she just got that in there. And that's nice about archery is you don't have to have any physical skills.
Mhm.
That
It's so much mental, it's definitely, a challenge, but that's what's cool about it. And that's been our biggest challenge this year. We set out, Claire was in Eagle Open Girls this year. It was her last year in it for ASA. And so we knew that this was, her top year, for it. She was,
Yeah.
seated to really kind of dominate that. And so we're like, this is your best opportunity to just really show what you got in it. She was able to secure, winning all 6 of them. And there were some girls that were really bringing it and challenged her all year long, and they were shooting really good. And there were 2 or 3 girls that were just right there with her, and they just pushed her all season. And one of them was able to beat her at S3DA nationals by quite a margin. So mentally, that really, put a fire in her belly. She came back and she's like, whoa, that can't happen again. That's not going to happen again. And I said, well, you've got 2 weeks, kid. So if you don't want to feel that again, I guess you better get that fixed up. And so, she went back to the next ASA and took care of business. And then the other girl was shooting really well at Outdoor Target Nationals. Let me think. Yeah, it was S3DA Outdoor Target Nationals. They went head to head. Claire was leading going into, I think leading going into elimination. She was the first seed, but lost in the first head to head match against that girl.
Oh.
And so she, had her win against her there, and then was able to come back to the classic, and they were head to head down to the last 3 targets. And so Claire was able to still take the domination in ASA, but both of those girls were able to get her at S3DA. And so talk about a mental roller coaster this year.
Oh, yeah.
So it was crazy. So she was able to get shooter of the year, and they do a joint ASA S3DA shooter of the year. So she was able to do that too. So, she really killed it this year, but seeing her progression from the beginning of the season, mentally, where she was at to the end of the season, was pretty awesome. And so now we're looking at a different division. She knows it's going to be absolutely brutal. That youth division is absolutely brutal. Those girls can shoot like lights out. And she can too, it's in her, but she's going to have to go into it with a mental toughness like she's never had before. So as her coach and parent, that I just want to, protect her, but also kind of push her out into that, like, just to see her grow. I know what she's going to have to go through to see that. And, we've got some things coming up where it's like, if she's going to make it through this next season with what she needs to do, she's going to have to put some serious mental management work together to make it.
Yeah.
Otherwise we won't travel like we did this year, because she won't make it through unless she puts some serious work into the mental management side of it. I think we bought our truck a year and a half ago. It's got 79,000 miles on it. So I can't even tell you how many stops were along that trail this year. But it was serious. When we laid it all out, I was like, I don't even know if this is possible. But, we're just going to kind of see where it goes. But the mental management side of it it'll dictate where it goes.
Yeah.
'Cause, you know, she's 12, so it's a pretty tender age to see how tough that'll be. Because she's as critical of herself as I am, so that's gonna be the tough side of it, is to see how she bears through it. If she can come out the other side and go, okay, well, that's how that worked. Like at IBO World, she was leading qualifications by 5 points going into the 10 target shoot down. There has not been a female cub win World since Cara Kelly in 1997 at IBO Worlds. So that was a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And everybody was like, go girl, like that is so awesome. How cool would it be? And we're like, shh, like, how stop? There's 10 targets to go. So many things can happen in 10 targets.
Yeah, don't like
And
the
so,
Kenny Rogers song. There's time to count the money when the dealing's done.
yeah.
Don't look
she
at your
didn't have
score.
Yeah, she didn't have a 5 point lead. She had a 4 point lead. I think the young man behind her was like 421 and she was at 425. And she stepped up to the first target and overjudged it and shot an 8 high. And so then there was 1 point lead. The young man was shooting lights out. And so when it was all said and done, the young man had a 5 point lead on her.
Oh,
And she took second. And so she was not happy and she was very upset. But she was a good sport. She congratulated him and, you know, she's like, can we go now? I'm like, absolutely not. You represent a lot of companies that are expecting you to smile very pretty on that podium, and you are going to shake that young man's hand because he shot amazing. You know, he came back. I go, you know, your judging was not on point today. 3 days is no joke. Those courses were very hard and you shot very well. So suck it up, Buttercup. You can cry on the way home. So, let's go. And so, you know,
well,
she learned it's
how,
hard.
what would it be like if you won and he's come in second? You know,
Right.
he would, congratulate your win. You congratulate him on his win, and even on the third place. You know, there's probably wasn't too many
Absolutely.
points between first, second, and third.
Yeah, it wasn't. And I mean, you know, that was rough. It was definitely rough. You know, she had been leading for 2 days. They were tied the first day, but she had him in X count. The second day she was leading by 4 points, which if she had just shot clean and had no 8s, she would have won. But he was pounding and she shot 8s, and you can't. Them boys were vicious. They were shooting real good. And so, you know, she just made a couple of judging mistakes, and it's all it took. And so I said, you made mistakes and he didn't, and he deserved it. He shot good. I don't know what to tell
Yeah.
you. You know, I go, you know what you got. But I said, you've got 1 more year in this division. So she's lucky. She's got 1 more year, and she'll come back swinging next year. I go, you got 1 more year to try and match Cara Kelly. I mean, how cool is that? I go, not
Yeah.
everybody gets a second chance, you know. I'm
You
like,
get that
how
close.
cool is that?
Was
You
it
know,
just a matter of a
so
few points coming in second by a few points by 1 bad arrow?
yeah, I'm like, I'm super proud of you. Like, how cool is that? It's amazing because but it's a hard division. You know, we learned a lot about the IBO and their process of, you know, handling situations and what to expect in those things. And so, you know, we'll be more prepared next year. And so it'll be fun. But yeah, it was a lot. And we came from Cullman, Alabama, you know, had 1 day in between and came in and shot that. I mean, we're just tired, you know, and now we're back to work and school. So I'm a teacher. So I went back today and got my classroom somewhat back together. And then tomorrow starts everything up and kids come back next week. Claire goes back to school and then we start our indoor game. So yeah, it'll be pretty interesting to get it going. My husband goes, well, you're not taking an off season. There is no off season. said, I know, I won't treat it like last year. Last year, I took all my bows apart and put fresh strings on everything all at the same time. I will not do that again.
No, my two bows have new strings on them. I got to finish getting set up and yeah,
Oh,
you always got to have one bow.
I was so stupid. I could not believe I did that. I ordered fresh new strings for every one of my setups with the Classic. They came and I literally spent one night and put new strings on every single thing in one night, thinking I had all this time, I'm like, oh, it's the off season. And then realized that I didn't have a single setup that was ready to go for 3D, not a single one. Like I can put something together for indoor pretty quickly, target setup pretty quickly. I cannot just throw something together. So in came Foley like a hurricane. That was not good. That was not good at all. But yep, I'm not making that mistake again. So that is good. But it should be a good season, good time to go. It'll be fun.
Yeah, it'd be good. I make my own strings, so I wouldn't do it for all of them at once, but I had made one from a hunting bow and never finished getting it set up because everything got in the way. And then I had my other one. I needed to make strings for that, so I started using as videos and show how to do stuff. And then I just never completed that one. And then the bow I got, the bear that I have, I've got a new string on it, and the stabilizer the string dampener that was messed up, I got that fixed. I've never mounted anything else onto it. That's as far as I went with that bow too. And it's like, I got 3 bows. I can't none of them set up. And I'm not going to grab my recurve. It's set up for bow fishing. I don't hunt with that one. And I just don't want to take the time it takes to learn the recurve good enough to hunt with it.
I know Todd and Claire just got recurves this past, I think, I don't know, 5-6 months ago. They were like, how fun would that be to have some? Claire's like, I think that would be a lot of fun. And S3DA is toying around with requiring that their team competitions include recurves, and their team doesn't have anybody that competes in those divisions. And so Claire's like, well, maybe I'll just venture onto that side of things. And so she got one, and I'll be darned, that kid can step up there and just hit the dang target every single time. It's like, how do you do that? It's like her with her judging game, even with IBO. I was sitting there telling, some friends afterwards, I go, she just has this natural ability to judge yardage that I just wish I had taken advantage of, when I knew it. But I've been browbeating her for years. When she was 2-3 years ago, she'd step up to shoot a target and I'd go, you need to range that, because she wouldn't range. She'd just set a target for what she thought it was. And she shoots known distance mostly. And I go, your competition is using a rangefinder. You are at a disadvantage if you are not using your rangefinder. She go, Mom, I know how far it is. She'd be like, it's 24.5 yards. And I'm like, no, use your rangefinder. And I, get after her, and I pull out my rangefinder. I'm like, it's 24.5 yards. Thing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, kid, you drive me nuts. And I would just get after her all the time. And finally, then we started doing things that were, like the local IBO or things that were unknown. And now I'm like, don't you use your rangefinder if you don't have to. Like, you trust your gut, just shoot it. And if it's not right and you shoot low or you shoot high, then start looking for the mistake. Where'd you make your mistake? What'd you not see? Where is it at? And I'll tell you what, that kid is like, she just has this ability. I mean, if it's around 30 yards, that kid can see it. And I wish I could see it like she does. She just has that ability. So it'll be really cool to see what she can do with it. But yeah, I wish I hadn't browbeat her for 2 or 3 years. It'd be really interesting to see how far she could be at this point if I hadn't been like, get your rangefinder out. Your competition's using that cheat box. Because yeah, I was like, oh, you just think back and go, oh, all those times that I made her click that thing. I didn't need to. She was so much better at it than I gave her credit for.
Yeah, you sit back with your rangefinder. Okay, how far is it? Yeah, okay. If the shooter, I'll tell you if he was right. And it's right. You know, she says it's 24 and a half yards, and you range it to 24 and a half yards.
Oh yeah, I mean, she is that on too. I mean, she's within half a yard. Anything in 30 yards, and her, like the IBO stuff, it's not her range that's off. It's her dropping her arm, or maybe it's got a weird angle to it or something. Like her judging, it's spot on. Like if you were to click her rangefinder, it's on. It's something, it's inconsistent with something, an angle or something goofy. Or maybe I mean, we don't know the Reinhardt targets. That's the other thing. We own the ASA range, so we shoot it all the time. We do
Right.
not know those targets. So if we're first up on a Reinhardt target and we don't know it and we can't see it, you know, we're at a huge disadvantage on an IBO course. But, you know, an ASA animal, that's why she, you know, can do that. That's why I'm really hoping that they offer a judging class for the ASA for the youth, because that would be really interesting to see what she can do with that. But yeah, I mean, these kids, their ability to see and, you know, have that depth perception is so much better than we give them credit for. You know,
Yeah.
if they could develop that at their age with their good eyes and their ability to see and do that stuff and do that at a young age, like they would be unstoppable when they get to be, you know, an adult. The fact that we're kind of keeping that from them, you know, in some of these scenarios is just holding them back, because they're going to be absolutely unstoppable if we can give them some of those options.
Let
So it'd be
let
pretty
them
cool to
go
see.
with what they're good at, and what they're not good at, help them learn it more. And you know, it's amazing, you know, kids can learn stuff easier than we can. You know, like you hear stories, a kid growing up in somebody with mixed languages, where like the grandparents speak one language, but then the parents speak, you know, English or whatever the second language is. And the kid just talks to the parent one language, talks to the grandparents in the other language. It's like nothing. You know, it's like,
Absolutely.
I have enough trouble just figuring out some of the words in some of the other languages, you know, that I know, you know. I can't speak anything, you know, real good except English, you know.
So true. It's so true. They just pick up on stuff so much easier. Yep, it gets harder and harder the older you get. So yeah, the more they can get into it, I think the better it'll be.
Yeah. I know I was used to judge yardage, you know, just judging yardage. And I started off when I started hunting, I had a 30-foot long rope, 10 yards. And I'd hook it on a peg on the tree, go out. Okay, there's 10 yards. I put a marker there. Take and go to the street. Okay, there's 20. You know, like in a field, I didn't know where that. And then once I figured out how to judge yardage, now then I judge yardage, you know, on straight. The hard part is when you're up on a hill, judge yardage to the target, because the target looks like it's further than what it is, because
Oh,
it is further, but you don't shoot it for further, because you have to shoot it for the horizontal distance. And that's where you're judging yardage up and downhill. It can really mess people up. And
it
it
gets
wasn't until,
tricky.
yeah, I think it was 2 years ago, I got my first rangefinder.
That's good. I wish that
So,
I'd started without that. You know, like I was talking with a couple people this weekend. I go, I started with an open setup because, you know, I mean, when I went and got my first bow, like I knew I wanted something quality, and I actually just got lucky because we were calling around and I couldn't hardly pull anything back. And I knew I wanted a quality bow. And so I ended up with a Matthews Halon. And it ended up being a special order from an older gentleman that had ordered a 40-pound Halon that he had set up for hunting. And so we drove up to Edmore, and so I started with that bow, and I was just lucky that I just happened upon that. And not many bow shops will sell, you know, used bows like that anyways. And so I started with an open setup. I didn't even really realize that you could compete with hunting setups. And so I started in a 40-yard class. I didn't even realize you could start in a pins 30 class with just no lenses and, just pins. And so I feel like and now I can't go back because then, I got really competitive with it really fast. And so, oh, well,
Yeah.
you're too good. You can't go back now. So I feel like I got cheated out of the fun I could have had, in the pins classes. So I've kind of played around with it in the IBO a little bit, but the IBO in the terrain and the steep, hills and the judging challenges there. Oh, that's a whole new ball game. You
Yeah, it
talk
is.
about, the judging and this stuff. And I was talking with the girls and I said, I was joking about the fact that I would only ever do hunter class in IBO because, my open setup for ASA, I got 30-inch front bar and 12. I think I even got 15 back bars on some of my other ones. I'm not hauling that through an IBO range. Like,
No.
there's no way. I mean, Worlds last year, trying to haul that contraption up the ski lift was like an absolute joke. Like that, the thought that I would even take that with me, like out on those ranges when you've got to hand things down on the side of a mountain cliff, was a total joke. And so I go, why on earth would I shoot an open setup at an IBO range? And they're like, you do know that the open ranges aren't quite as bad as the hunter class ranges, right? And I'm like, what? All this time I thought IBO ranges were all like, we had to be mountain goats up the side of the hills and doing all of this stuff. And she goes, no. They make the youth in the hunter classes like pretty much be billy goats. And the rest of them have a little bit like more ranges where you can get those big open setups, through some of that stuff. I go, oh, okay, well, maybe I'll look into that a little differently the next time that I want to do that. But I was like, that's good to know because I am still not hauling this whole rig out there through an IBO setup because these ranges are a whole lot different than ASA ranges, that's for sure. Although I think you say it Cacapen resort, they had paths that were through it that were pretty well maintained. I was like, they still made you go over the river and through the woods a little bit, but not near like a normal situation. So there were crazy bees. In fact, a couple of the pros got stung really badly. One had to be transported off and couldn't return to the range, but for the most part, they were actually pretty mild compared to what they've been in the past. But, so I feel like I didn't get a chance to go from hunter to open to, progress through the different types of equipment. But yeah, so now we're like, it would have been kind of fun to play with, maybe some of the recurves and, do some of that stuff. And Claire's even played around like at IBO Worlds, they've got the Genesis class and they've got different teams with that. And so she's like, I'd shoot a Genesis. And one of the teams here in Michigan's like, well, we'd want you on our team. So, you ever want to pick up one of those, like you're welcome on our team kind of thing with center shot and stuff. So, yeah, there's just so many really cool things that you can do in different types of equipment. It'll be really interesting to see, where you go with that.
Yeah, just so many options out there, and it's a lot of fun. And we've been talking almost 2 hours now.
There's so much.
Where's the time go? I was like, oh man, we're almost 2 hours now for this. But it's so much fun talking with you, and all the archers. It's just such great stories, and it's just such a joy, hearing all the different stories and how you got started and what your family's doing with it, and all that's just been so cool.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's definitely a lifestyle. Like I said, we've got a whole other family out there on the road that we didn't even know existed until some little girl was like, well, you don't start getting involved in this, I'm out.
Yeah, and thank her every day for getting you
No
started in it.
kidding. Little did we know,
So
it's a wild
sometimes the
ride.
kids, yeah, sometimes the kids just they make you do stuff that you never thought you'd enjoy, and you enjoy it. And that's always the fun part, is when you get into something that you end up having a good passion for it, and you enjoy doing it, and something the whole family can do. And I remember, when my kids were younger, going out to 3D shoots, and yeah, I didn't care where we come in. I put them up close. They're shooting little 5-pound compound bows, only 5 pounds, and shooting the kind of the points didn't really stick real, because they're like, go close enough that you can hit it. The whole point was to hit it, and they got counted whether it stuck in it or not. At least got the 5 points for hitting the animal, because you could always tell where it hit. You going out there, and yeah, now that as they get older, then you get a little bit more bows, and now that they can stick, and you can actually count them, and now they're all grown.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, that's what it's all about. It's just, it's cool to do. It's funny because our older kids are like, I don't know if people even know that we're even around. There's even 3 more of us out here. It's part of your family. I don't know I don't know if they do or not. I said, but you're all grown up, and there's only one, little one anymore. They're all in their 20s and almost 30 now. But I go, it's part of it. So, but it's just cool. It's just cool to be able to do it with them. And, I really hope that, by us doing what we do and getting the word out, and showing people that, you can do it and be as crazy as we are, or you can do it on as little and small of a scale as you want, but just do it. Just get out there and have fun with your family, and do it, together, as little or as crazy as it is, because it just brings people together. And at the end of the day, it would be an absolute shame to see this sport die. And unless kids start getting involved and keep growing this sport, it will. And it would be an absolute shame, because it brings so much joy to so many people. Whether it's competing or hunting or doing whatever, just working on your own thing. I know somebody shared with me at one of the local tournaments that they just went through a terrible scenario with their daughter. He was in absolute tears telling us what had happened to his daughter. And he said shooting his bow was the only thing that saved him, because like I said, you can't think about anything else when you're shooting.
No, you can't.
So, when he just wanted to absolutely end everything that was going on, and even himself at times, he shot his bow. And I was like, what a beautiful thing to have to do instead of what he was contemplating. Like,
Yeah.
Nick Hart, one of our good friends that we travel and are part of his ministry, like, it's one of the things he talks about, like, wow, can you imagine that shooting your bow has so much more powerful things that you can do? So, yeah. So hopefully that's what, just showing that our family is nuts. We're crazy. We are absolutely crazy. We do way more than what I recommend doing. If you want to do it, great, we'll show the way. But at the end of the day, it's what definitely feeds us. But just getting involved as a family and doing it, hopefully we inspire other families to just keep doing it and growing that love for the kids, and just showing that this is something that can keep kids out of doing stupid things, and showing them that they can make goals and achieve them and do great things and be independent. And when they have rough stuff going on in their life, that they can achieve great things. It's all good stuff. I don't know a single negative aspect of it. Even drama has a silver lining. It's a good thing.
Probably the only really big drawback is money.
Oh, yeah.
Once you get into it, you're always spending money on archery stuff.
Yeah, we have Todd put a meme out there somewhere of, I think it's Leonardo DiCaprio or something that said, something about, people are like, oh, you look really rich with all the stuff you buy. And he goes, no, that'd just be irresponsibility. It's only money. You make more every day.
Yeah. Well,
But
and you
it's our
spend it on archery
experiences.
equipment and other people spend it on other things, and it's what do you want to spend it on? And
People gamble, they drink, they do lots of things. We buy archery equipment. We can't help it. I'm addicted to arrows. I can't help it. I like new arrows all the time. I like crisp new arrows for shoots. New bows when they come out. Some people like designer shoes. I could care less what shoes I wear, but I will have the newest, latest rest, peep, cover, design, fresh set of arrows when I need them. Can't help it.
designer bows,
Designer bows.
clothes, designer bows.
Yep. Yep. I got new pretty strings. Yep.
What colors do you get on your strings?
Oh, this last time, when I first started shooting, I used to put ghost, the gas ghost strings
Yeah.
on all of them. They were all ghost white because that was the best at the time. I'd ask Eric, I'm like, well, what are the best? He goes, well, the Ghost XBs. I go, well, then that's what you need to send me. Well, then I was like, well, they're kind of boring. Like everything's just black and white. And I kind of want to do something, brighter.
Not
And he's
boring.
like, well, you do know that all of our strings are good. And I'm like, I'm sure they are, and he's like, no, I'm serious. They're all good. They're all whatever. And I said, all right, well, send me something different. So now I've shot them all. I know that there's differences in the different strings. I visited the factory, which if you ever want to see, a really cool situation. I mean, there are great strings out there all over. There are great companies that make strings. Like you said, you make your own. There are great, I'm not saying that they're, the only string manufacturer in the world that makes great strings by any means, but I, got to see firsthand their quality control, process. They have amazing customer service. I love it. And I got to see the process from start to finish. Like they got their order in the computer and I got to watch it start to finish. And right now, so now I'm like, I don't care. Like I'll take anything, because now I know it doesn't matter what it is. Like it's all great quality. But they've got, oh gosh, let's see. I think I have fluorescent pink or like flow pink on my 36. That's my 3D bow. I have turquoise on my backup 3D set, which is like my outdoor one.
You didn't see what I'm holding up.
Ooh, that's fancy.
Pink and purple, fluorescent pink
There you
and purple.
go. Yep,
I have all the different string colors. I made little samples to test, see what color I wanted to make, and this is a blue and a tan.
Yeah, those are
Fluorescent green
fancy.
and pink.
I usually just do solid colors. I haven't done much with the mix.
Tan and mountain berry. Some of these I didn't complete yet done, but
yep, I've gotten away
this one's
from
got like
just
3
being
different
like,
colors.
send me the Ghost XVs. Now I'm like, what do you got that's really bright and flashy? I think I have royal blue on my indoor setup. Trying to think. I might have green on. I think I do have Ghost on my phase 4. Nope, that has flow pink on it. My phase 4 has flow pink on it. So yeah, they're bright and flashy now. Because then I got to hunting. But they do personalized speed knocks. So the last time that Todd called in my order, he had my name put on it. So
yeah.
like, oh, your name's put on them. So
That
that's
makes it
kind
your
of fun.
bow.
They said they'll put anything but zebra on them.
Oh.
So I'm like, ha ha ha, that's funny. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for the zebra
so
strings, right?
that's my thing. But I have a very specific way that I tie my peeps in. And so I have like that little trademark, way that I tie everything in. And so I always have people like taking a look at my peeps and doing all kinds of different things to them. So I like that. I like that people like to look at my bright strings and they're like, what's all that? And what do you got going on there? So they're kind of flashy,
Yeah, why not,
kind of
right?
fun. Yeah, I'm like, why not?
But and there's a lot of different ways to tie peeps in. I've probably tied them myself 4 different ways.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And
It
none of
depends on
it's
how I feel
wrong.
at the time.
Right. None of it's wrong. It's kind of funny because I've always had a certain way of doing just about everything. Like my older sister can usually point things out. Like I'm a hairstylist, so I have different ways of doing things. And she used to sit in the salon, she'd wait in the waiting room and she could tell like who my last client was, as they walked out. She's like, that one was yours. I'm like, what is that? She goes, I can just tell by the way their hair was curled or whatever. I'm like it's a cookie cutter or something. She goes, nope, I can just tell it's your work, or whatever. And, handwriting or whatever, just a signature thing. So it's kind of fun. But I guess you put your stamp on stuff.
Yeah. I know I got a buddy of mine, he's a hairdresser and and I've watched people come in. This one time, this one lady walked in and, just the hairdo, just the way it looked, one of those that they'd walk down the street, you really wouldn't notice them. But when she walked out, you'd have turned around and looked at it. That's just the hairdo. The
Mhm.
only thing changed was the hair. And it's amazing what that little, I don't know, he was so good, but just whatever he did, it just looked amazing when she walked out.
Mhm.
The transition, and no clothes changed, no makeup changed. You see a lot of those, they'll have the before pictures, no makeup, frowning, this one, makeup, and all smiling. It's like, no,
It's
this
everything.
it's amazing, what some of that do. And it's the thing on the bows, if you're attracted to the bow, it looks cool, you like the way it looks, you feel good holding it, you're going to shoot better.
It's everything. But I think that's why it's all part of it. It's just like the students. I tell them, I go, it's more than just the haircut. Like it's how you make somebody feel. It's how do you feel it? It's just like, I don't know. There's a difference between driving, a Cadillac and driving a little, a little Malibu, car. There's a difference. It's how it handles, how it makes you feel. It's the prestige of it. It's like, it's the whole package. It's like, how does something make you feel? It's the whole thing. It's not just the haircuts. It's not
No,
just that. So it is, it's the whole thing. Even shooting a bow, like how does it make you feel? How does it feel in your hand? How does it draw back? How does it hold? How does it aim? How is your equipment working? How is all of that going? How do you feel when you're shooting it? I mean, if you don't like looking at it and you don't like the color of something and you think it looks stupid, you're definitely not going to shoot it well.
no. Well, that's the first time I take somebody looking for a bow, especially new archers, because they don't really know what to look for. I says, if they're shoot right-handed or shoot left-handed, it's like, okay, here's all the bows, put it in your hand. How's it feel?
Mm-hmm.
If you don't like the way it feels when you put it in your hand, put it back up. And now we
Right.
get a couple of them, you like the way they feel. Okay, now then we'll look at setting it up. And I always set the draw weight to the lowest it'll go.
Yeah.
Because we're not trying to see how much you can pull or see what it feels like
Right.
pirate. We want to compare them at the same poundage, and then we can always crank
Absolutely.
it up. If I shoot 70 pounds, it's still, if I'm going to try a bow, I want it at 60, because I want to feel how it feels all of them at 60, 29 inches, 60 pounds, all about need to be there so I can see how they feel. And sometimes you get a bow that you just don't like the way it feels, or you can't get it set up. I had a bow one time when I was PSC dealer. They also bought Browning Archery, and they come out with this one bow. I forget which model, but it had counter rotating cams. And one of the guys I talked to was actually a rep for him and worked for him. He knew which one I was talking about. But I wanted to shoot that just because I thought it was so cool to have one cam rotate one way, but the other way. They were just counter rotating. It's like, it was cool. And so I set it up. I could not get it to fit me. No matter what I did, I could not get that bow to fit me. And I wanted to shoot it because I thought it was cool. That this should be shooting that one. But it just would not, something about it. I just couldn't get it to fit me right.
Yeah.
And that's what you have to go through. It's like, if it don't fit you, you can go out and spend $2,500, $3,000 on a bow. If it don't fit you, and you grab a bow from the pawn shop that fits you perfectly, which one has more value? The cheap pawn shop one for $300-$400.
And you want to be excited. I mean, it's like I've seen people buy something in the store. It's like we'll have a husband and wife come in, and they'll both want to get set up for, a bow. And the husband will totally miss the mark that, like, the wife is more excited about, the string dampeners that are all blingy and the case that she picked up that's got some girly camo trim on it that would make her excited about walking out with that bow.
Right.
Than the bow itself. She's literally more excited about the accessories. And he's like, we don't need none of that stuff, and it's like, I'm telling you right now, if you bought the $80 worth of accessories, she's actually going to go home and practice in the backyard with you today and be excited about this. But if you keep naysaying her on the accessories, she's literally going to walk out of here and she's not going to shoot that bow with you. Like, she's not going to buy the bow today. Like, she's not going to do it. You just took all the joy out of it. Like, she was so excited that she was like, she found a case that had this really cute real tree. I mean, I think it's silly, but I'm not the one that needs to be excited about shooting this bow. Like, it doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter if I have a case that does it. Like, in fact, I don't want my bow in a case. I'd like to throw my bow in the back seat fully put together. It annoys me to have to put my bow together. I don't want a case. I want it fully put together. I just want it ready to go and to be able to shoot. But here is a young lady that wants a fancy case because it makes her excited to shoot her bow. Buy the case. Make her excited to shoot her bow. She wants the dampeners that are bright pink that matches the trim on her case. Buy the case. Buy it. It's going to make her excited, but it's not important to him. So he doesn't understand it. So it's kind of fun. Like, part of me, sometimes I walk out brokenhearted for people because they're so straight-minded, about just what matters to them, that they ruin the joy that's so little for somebody else that might literally bring this couple together for shooting their bow, together, because he just wants her to get into it, but he doesn't understand that it literally would take a bow case to make her excited about shooting this thing. But he'll be hard-headed and not buy the damn case, and she won't want to buy the bow. She'll find something wrong with it. In fact, I think that day she literally found something wrong with the bow and didn't buy it. He walked out with a bow and she didn't. And she was so excited. She was like, oh yeah. And then, oh my gosh, look at this, like this case and this. And he's like, yeah, we don't need any of that stuff. Like, we don't need any of that. Like, and by 20, 30 minutes later, she was like, well, it didn't really quite feel right. And, all that. And I'm like, we could probably work a deal and get you a good deal on that. And she's like, yeah, it's just so cute. And it would go really good. I'm like, this is totally about this case, and he just didn't see it. It was totally about the case. I'm like, oh, sometimes it's about the frosting, buddy. Like, it's the frosting. Like, you just missed it. But, people have to realize, like, people do things for different reasons. And sometimes it's about carrying it in a cool case, and who knows?
Yeah, I had one time I was teaching the kid how to shoot. And the dad was basically sitting here contradicting everything I said to do. He was saying it do it wrong. And it's like, I'm wasting my time with this kid because the kid's gonna go home, the dad's gonna screw him all up, and I'm doing any good at all. Because the kid didn't know any better than telling him to basically shut up and let me,
Yep, and
let
then
me
they're
learn the
gonna
right way.
fight, and he's not gonna be able to do very good, and then he's gonna get discouraged, and then it's gonna sit on a shelf and it's done.
I had something kind of similar to that. I was teaching this lady how to shoot her first bow. The husband had shot before, so he had been shooting, and I'm teaching her how to shoot, and he's trying to contradict me, and she's ignoring it. And they come back in, I forget how much longer, a few weeks, couple months, whatever it was. And she was pissing him off because she'd pick which part of the X ring to put the arrow in. Because she come in and told me, it's like, I got Roy sitting on my shoulder telling me what to do. She listened to me, ignored him, and I'm on the shoulder telling her what to do to go through the shot, and she's picking which part of the X ring to put the arrow.
I love it. I love
It's like when she told me that, it's like, oh man, that is just so cool. When you can teach somebody like that and she's out shooting him every
Mhm.
day, all day long. And I find that true many times. If you're going to listen to what I'm teaching you, or the coach, if you listen to your coach, you're going to outshoot the person that has a closed mind and will not listen to the coach.
For sure. For sure. That, and husband and wives have a hard time coaching each other. Like, I don't know
Yes.
many that can coach each other. I can't help my husband and he can't help me. Like, I mean, it was real evident very early on that there was very little he was going to offer me, with coaching. Like, he could show me how to pull my bow back, but that was about it. And I can help him in a few things. Like, there's been a couple times where he's listened to me coach other kids, and he's admitted a couple of things to me. Like, I'll hear him tell other people, like, Coach Kasey just says, just really focus on the middle of the target, and, just bury your eyes right where you want that arrow to hit. And you just burn your eye into it and focus on just exactly where you want it to hit. Cause he's always like, my bow just aims low. And I'm like, that's stupid. That you're focusing low on the target. That is either the beginning of target panic, or you are focusing in the wrong area. Like, you should be burning a hole through the target where you want it to hit. And so I hear little bits of like, he is listening, like, but he would never.
He ain't doing.
And so I can't really help him. And so I've stopped trying to like coach him. Like, if he asks me like, hey, will you take a look at this? And like, I'll help him take measurements or like work on a sight tape, or like, his eyesight's gotten worse in the last year. He just had the big 50 the other day. We just celebrated.
A whole 50, huh?
So I'm not quite there yet, even though I just had another big milestone myself. So, I'll help him with stuff like that, but I can't coach him. We're too close. I don't know many husbands and wives that can. So it's like, leave that to the professionals. Get a good, close family friend, or, somebody that you trust that's knowledgeable. Do not try to coach each other. I do not know hardly any couples, actually. None of the husbands and wives that I know, none of the boyfriends and girlfriends that I know. Actually, I can't think of a single couple that I know that are successful at coaching each other in any facet at all. Not a single one out of our archery family. So yeah, that's not good. And parent to kid, like, I say I coach our daughter. No, I encourage her. I remind her what our coach says. Our coach tells me what I'm to remind her of on the range. But when it comes to coaching her, she's truly getting her coaching from another coach. It may literally be the same words that would come out of my mouth if I were to coach her, but it can't come from me. She doesn't hear it from me in the same way. To me, I'm nagging her. And it's literally the same words. that would come out of my mouth, but I need to pay $1 million to someone else to tell her the exact same words, because from me, it's not the same, but that's just how it works, unfortunately. And then I go and share the same information with others because, I can't help but share that information with others because I want to see other people, do well too. But it is something else to try and coach your significant other or your kids, and then have them be closed-minded, or not pay attention or not listen. And then on the other side of it, if God forbid you give them bad information, or they think you give them bad information, then it's really bad. Like actually during S3DA nationals where Claire took second, I was trying to teach her about course management. That was one of our big focuses this year, was managing the course. Look at the course. You can't go hard for every single 12. You can't. If you do, it's a little reckless. This is a 2-day course. Day one, let's feel it out. Go for the ones for sure you can go for. But if you start out in the deficit, you've got a problem for day 2. We don't want to give away points in day 1 when we could stay where we need to be. Well, she goes hard at it. That kid is reckless. Like she is on or she's off. So we're working on course management. Well, she went all the way, all through it. And so she gave away a few points. Well, day 2, I'm like, listen, you are down, you're down 6. I think she was down 6 or 8 points. And I said, you've got to make that up plus some. And we don't know how this young lady is going to shoot today. She shot lights out yesterday. You've got to match her and exceed 6 to 8 points to catch her. This is going to take all you've got today. So you got to be on and then some. Do you understand me? She's like, yep. I'm like, okay. So it's management today. You can't give back any points. So safe 12s. That means connectors. We're aiming at connectors. We're not blowing out the top of stuff. We're not dropping out the bottom of it. We're not going like gangbusters. We're not out here like Rambo. Do you understand me? She's like, okay. Well, then she started playing 2 safe and she started hitting 10s. Where she would have normally just blown out of there, going crazy at him. So then, she should have hit 2 or 3 of them that I'm like, what is that? What is that? And she's like, you're telling me to play it safe. And I'm like, that's not what I said. I'm like, I didn't say don't go for them. I said, play it on the safe side of them, maybe not aim at the dead center of them, maybe aim at the bottom third of them, but not center 10, but I had already crossed the threshold. She was mad at me. She's 12. I'm mom. I'd already lost the competition for her. How are we ever going to recover? And it was over mentally. It was already I'd lost it in the first 3 targets for her because I gave her bad advice. I told her to play safe. How dare I? In addition, my husband probably felt the same way because how dare I tell her to play it safe when she could have gangbustered it and come out just crazy amazing. And then the young lady that she was shooting against shot lights out again. Amazing. Earned her first place. And it was, the cards fell where they were going to fall. It was what it was. I was the only level-headed one on the course that day, apparently. So, it's one of those things where you just, you can give good advice and it comes across in the wrong way, or you can give, so-so advice and it comes across the best way and in the best circumstances, but more than likely, not with somebody super close to you. That's for sure.
Yeah, you said play it safe. That's all she heard. Nothing after that.
She heard. Center 10.
Yeah.
Just center 10.
Yeah.
I was like, what are you doing? Like, you should have gotten that. That was a 22-yard target. Like, what are you doing? She's like, well, you told me to play it safe. No, no, no. I said safe side of them. That means not at the top of the 12, because she goes for uppers a lot. That means connectors, like the bottom of the upper 12, not center 12 or center 10. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah,
what are you
you probably
doing?
just said, okay, do you know what you need to do this time? And let her figure out what she needed to do.
Exactly. And that's where I was at. I was like, scratch that I ever said anything. Trust your gut. You know what's you, and that's basically what I said. Trust your gut and go out there and shoot your game. You know what you got to do. Go out there. And she shot fantastic. She actually matched her score the second day, but she was 8 points down from the day before. So there was
Yeah.
nothing she could do. I go, unfortunately, you gave everything you did yesterday away. She tied her, day 2. I go, so unfortunately, you gave away yesterday what you gave away. There's nothing we can do, but you shot amazing today. So it's a win. It's good. It's good. You still hit the podium. It's wonderful. You shot fantastic. You can't win them all. I know. It's amazing. You can't win them all. There are other
So,
amazing archers out here working very hard too.
yeah, you learn from every shoot. Every shot you take, you learn from.
Yep. So, and it'll be, harder and harder as she gets older. She's just not used to not dominating it.
Yeah, move up a division and it's hard to dominate that new division.
Well, and I used to be able to say, I don't know many kids that work harder than that kid. Claire used to shoot hours every single day. She had a hunger in her that I'd never seen in another kid. Now that she's getting a little older, she's not as devoted to it. She still practices a lot. She still works very hard at it, but she's at that age now where it's harder for her to be as devoted to it. She's got more homework, more things like that on her mind. And so, it gets harder. So we'll see what the future brings. But
Yeah,
I told her, I go, we're on this ride as long as you're driving the bus, kid. So we'll see. We'll see where she wants to go with it.
yep. Let her go where she wants to go. If she wants to go harder, then go harder. If she wants to back off a little bit. And I've talked to several people that they just went crazy for a while, and then things happened, family stuff, and now they're back into it again. They just never lost the passion for it. They just, things got in the way, and then you go back to it, and sometimes you go back even better than it was when you left. 'Cause you
Yeah,
have time to get away from all the bad habits, and then now you're learning, the good habits. And
exactly. Well, we tease her, she'll go, oh, I'm just feeling a little burnout. I'm like, that's fine. Take a break off. Me and dad will just go. Well, that takes about 30 seconds. And then she's like, what time are we leaving? When do we leave in the morning? How many days are we going to be gone? How long do I got to pack for? Like, yeah, I thought that was going to last about 30 seconds.
Yeah, when you guys are going too, and then she enjoys it so much, then yeah, she's not gonna let you go without her.
So that's what we're telling us, like, oh, no, we are not the driving force here. Like, if you want to go, then you know what you need to do, and the last month or so, we've been really solid on like this. Everybody's taking care of their own stuff. You're going to go out and pack up your own bow. You are packing up your own things. You're packing your stuff. You're loading your stuff. When we got to IBO, she was like, wait a minute, what? You didn't load my stuff? No. You need to pack your own stool, your own things. You're getting on the bus yourself. They're picking you up at the thing. Like, you're 12 years old. It's time for you. You know what you need to have. Like, you've done this enough. Like, it's time for you to do this. She's like, oh, well, okay. And she did. She goes, well, where's my rain jacket? I don't know. What'd you do with that? I'm like, want to tell you. So this time was like, she's usually pretty independent. Like she gets up on her own, does her own thing. Like, school's usually not a problem, but this last time she was all totally on her. I'm like, if you don't have what you need, I don't know what to tell you. You got to figure it out. But this time it was like, we're all shooting, we're all doing our own thing, we're all packing our own stuff. So it's good. It makes them much more independent. And now I don't have to do all of her stuff, which is great.
Well, then if you forget something, then she's mad at you for forgetting it. Now, if it's not there, it's her own fault.
Exactly. Exactly. And
You know,
now I
12
can't
is
be
plenty
mad at
old enough for
Todd,
that.
and he can't be mad at me if he forgets his quiver, and all those good things.
Yeah, that's definitely the way to go once you get there. And I know a lot of times when my kids are younger, it's like I'm loading the car with everything that we need, and then they get there, and then I'm unloading the car, and it's like, okay, now they're old enough they can load their own stuff.
Mm-hmm. Although this last trip, we were gone for about 2.5 weeks, and we had we had our ASA bows plus our IBO bows. So I think we had so we had 6 bows in there and all our different setups. And we didn't take a hitch extension. A lot of times we'll take our hitch extension. So it was kind of like playing a game of Tetris in the back of that truck. So not everybody can load that. That's my game. So Todd brings everything out to the back of the truck, and then I just point and he hands and I stack and put every little thing in nook and cranny, and literally down to like every boot gets put in just so all of our stuff gets put in, so that nothing gets squished, nothing gets ruined. Cause yeah, this trip was tight, getting everything down a lot. Cause we take targets and stuff to practice. Like we had an Airbnb so that we took our small bag target, and then we have a deer body, like little target that we take so that we can warm up right at our Airbnb in the morning. So that we don't have to try and get to the shoot site early and then get on a bag or do any of that. We can warm up and then just put our bows in the back seat with, Claire has to hold bows clanking together as we drive down the road, but it makes things a little smoother for us in the mornings. So yeah, it's just a lot of travel, but we're living the dream.
Yeah, it sure sounds like it. So what would and parting thoughts here, just let our audience know a little something that you want to tell them, and we just kind of say whatever you want to say to the audience. And
let's see. Well, I mean, if you're already shooting a bow, you know how amazing it is. But if you're just getting into it, just keep at it, try something new, push yourself. I think it's one of those things, like if you only know one facet of it and you never push yourself to try something new, you don't know what's out there. I didn't realize that people that didn't compete didn't know that there were competitions like local and national and things that they could do and get into. People that do the TAC events for fun, that they're doing all these crazy distances and stuff, and they're not really competing, they're just doing all these things for fun, had no idea that they could go and compete, for things. The R100s where you're doing those kinds of things for fun, had no idea that there were organized competitions. Guys that just hunt, for fun or not for fun, hunt to put food on the table, didn't know that their local archery clubs, offer different things, to support their local organizations. And so just finding out more and more on social media about what's available out there. And then, realizing that if we don't spread the word about what is available and get the love of shooting a bow out there, this sport will not flourish. It is such a learned skill that you have to develop over time, that if you don't see or don't learn the aspect that drives you and what is your passion for it, then it's not going to grow. And so we're seeing that diminished with different, clubs and things like that. And yet different aspects of it are growing and kids are getting involved in it. And so just get out there and try something. If you feel like, I used to have a bow 25 years ago and I never really dusted it off in the closet. Well, what made it boring? Get it out and find something that would make it fun again. Because there's something for everybody, whether it's a
Right.
local, shoot, or if it's getting into something big, or just, getting into hunting again, or going and hanging out at the local archery shop. I mean, there's literally groupies that hang out every weekend at the local archery shop.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's literally that, find out what aspect of it you're missing, because there's something for everybody, but we're missing the boat if we don't find, what that is missing. So, that's where my passion is for this is, I have not met a person yet that didn't find one aspect of shooting a bow that they can get passionate about. And, as a family, there's something for everybody. And so we need to keep pushing that out there, so that it continues to grow, so that it's around for more and more generations, to come, instead of it being a sport that just kind of fizzles out.
Good point. It's been around for a long time, and almost 70,000 years. There's evidence of
Yeah.
archery back that long, and there's a reason it's still here. It's probably one of the oldest sports there is, and and it's an art form, and once you learn it, it's just so much fun.
For sure.
Well, it's been really great talking with you. We've been talking quite a while now, and it's just like time just flying by. Just so much to talk
Yeah.
about. It's been
What
so much
happens
fun
when you
talking
have
with you. And
fun?
yeah, that's the thing. We kind of go over. We plan it for an hour, but hey, no limits. My name is Roy Canterbury. I've been your host today on Archery Talk 101 with Kasey on the line, and we've been having a whole lot of fun, and I'm sure we'll have a lot more fun on future talks. And we're going to go ahead and stop the recording.